Um, Morning, everyone. Welcome along to this this webinar focusing on Microsoft Sentinel and our MDR product. My name's Adam Chamberlain. I look after the new business team, new business acquisition team within Transparency. So I have a team of sales specialists that kind of work with our kind of new customers to kind of bring them on and get working with Transparency and understand their needs, bring in the specialists where necessary. So sorry, I'm just clicking admit. So we've got quite a lot to get through today. So I'm going to kind of keep the introduction really brief. Could we just skip on to the next slide, please? Thank you. So look, I'm kind of mindful that some of you may work with us already, some of you may not, but just a little bit about Transparency. We are a Microsoft pure play partner with a focus on cloud only. So what that means is we only kind of work within the Microsoft ecosystem. And we only focus on kind of deploying cloud solutions, which is fantastic because we don't carry some of that kind of legacy kind of on-premise complication. We go cloud first always. A little bit about us, we're kind of really focused on our culture. The reason being is because we believe, and it's been proven, that if you kind of treat employees well, they feel engaged and happy and motivated, they ultimately deliver the best results for customers, and that's kind of proven there in kind of a number of kind of accolades and awards in and around best places to work, etc., etc. Glassdoor. You see NPS mentioned there. We're big on NPS in terms of tracking customer satisfaction and employee satisfaction, because again, that is where the focus is. If we could just nip to the next one, please. So just in terms of that Microsoft specialization, you can see there kind of around our accreditations, designations and specializations, which are Microsoft's evolution away from kind of just gold and silver. The focus here really is about kind of referenceable, deployable work, as just opposed to revenue and exams passed. So it's kind of it really digs into the detail of what we can do and what we're capable of. And obviously a number of those are in and around security. You can see there that the Microsoft Intelligence Security Association is mentioned. We are a member of that committee, which is a kind of global collection of partners that help feed into, steer and shape different kind of products and offerings within Microsoft. So a select few, and it's great to be part of that because it sort of shows our dedication in that space. And in terms of a kind of an intro, that pretty much covers it off. I won't kind of go into all the bullet points there. I know Sean's got an awful lot to get through, and I want to give him the time to do that. Mary's mentioned that the session's recorded, so if you don't want to be recorded, please do keep yourself on mute. Ask any questions in the chat, or by all means, kind of raise your hand and ask questions going through. It's great to make them interactive and certainly makes them more interesting for Sean as he drives. Anything else, Sean, before I hand over to you?
No, it's all good. Thanks, Adam. Perfect. Thank you. So welcome, everyone. As Adam said, I'm Sean Wilkin, Head of Security here at Transparency. Today, we're going to take a run through of Microsoft Sentinel and our MDR offering. I'd encourage you guys to raise your hand, come off mute, or use the chat for questions if you have any. Nice to keep it interactive if we can, but there will be sort of time at the end for questions if you've got any. We'll start things off with our MDR service and what it's built on, which is Microsoft Sentinel. Any MDR service is going to be built on a SIEM, or Security Information and Event Management platform. You can think of this as a system that is used to ingest log files from disparate log sources and take those logs and correlate them to make sense of what is happening within your organization from a security perspective. One of the key things that any SIEM should do is take those sort of lower fidelity alerts and enrich those with its own telemetry data Better products like Sentinel do have artificial intelligence and machine learning built into them, which means that it can turn those sort of lower fidelity alerts that often administrators and security analysts would waste time on triage, and actually turn those into high fidelity incidents. So actually the things that need to be actioned, and are cause for concern for the security teams. So our MDR service is built on Microsoft Sentinel. It's a best of breed SIEM, as you can see there from the graphic on the right hand side. I get that we're a Microsoft house and we have a bias there, but of course don't take our word for it. If you look at the Gartner Magic Quadrant, the latest one, or any of the previous ones over the last couple of years, you'll see that Microsoft are in that Magic Quadrant there. So definitely rubbing shoulders with some of the best SIEMs out there, your likes of Splunk, Logarithm, ArcSight, QRadar, etc. So definitely a big player in that space. Also, I'd encourage you guys to have a look at the sort of Forrester Wave reports as well. So another great example of a third-party validation of Microsoft security product there in that space. We of course use Sentinel for everything we do, for our MDR service as well as our full managed security service. We've seen significant investment from Microsoft in Sentinel, and they continue to build on the product. The rate of change has just been massive. The beauty of Sentinel, of course, is that it's delivered as PaaS, so platform as a service in Azure, which means, of course, you don't have to maintain any sort of on-premise kit. So you don't have to provision servers. You don't have to manage the storage, backups, fault tolerance, any sort of resiliency there. Microsoft take care of all of that for us, which makes it extremely agile and comes with all of the other advantages, of course, of PaaS, including scale. So we don't ever have to worry about scale, downtime, maintenance, any of those kind of things. The SIEM itself, of course, brings to the table not only that correlation, etc., but we can use that for multiple other things. So we've covered the sort of key element of it, which is threat detection. But we can also use it proactively because it's ingesting significant amounts of telemetry from disparate log sources, and we'll cover what they can be in the next slide. But we can use that data for threat hunting. So beyond using it as a reactive product to actually surface threats that are happening within your organization, we can proactively go looking for those threats using that log data that Sentinel has. This is extremely powerful, so we can use this to actually query across the entire estate. We use this internally in our SOC, fed by threat intelligence. So where a new threat, perhaps a zero-day or emerging threat arises, we can take those indicators of compromise and actually go looking for those within the estate using Sentinel. So really powerful part of its skill set there. We've also covered the sort of alert correlation and enrichment. We can supplement that even further by bringing in third-party indicators. We can feed it with third-party threat intel as well to further enrich Sentinel's signals. The rapid investigation at scale, this is achieved through the use of the machine learning and artificial intelligence. So Sentinel will actually take the data it learns about and actually start to make recommendations for things, for alert tuning. Obviously, with any SIEM, you do tend to get, at least initially, an overwhelming amount of false positives and benign positives. It takes an amount of effort and skills to actually start to tune those out of the product, so that you are reporting on those exceptions that can be actioned. Sentinel brings that to the table. And then lastly, two component parts of the product that are generally bolt-ons or sort of uplifts to those other best of breed SIEMs that I mentioned earlier, are included in Sentinel's core product offering. So the first being SOAR, or Security Orchestration, Automation and using those logic apps. And then lastly, we can use the behavioral analysis engine built into Sentinel. It starts to build a picture of what are the problems within your estate. So things like reoccurring activities that are bound to a user, a device, an IP address, etc., or a file. And those can be quite a good insight into who are problematic users potentially or devices in our organization. And we might want to use those as a starting ground for things like threat hunting. If we regularly see users that are subject to alerts and security incidents, we may wish to target them for things like user education and awareness training, or apply additional security controls around those users. So moving on to how Sentinel is built up. Obviously, Adam mentioned earlier that we are Microsoft house first and foremost, and predominantly cloud native. Of course, that doesn't really work for security. We need to ensure that we can protect all of our customers equally, regardless of where their resources reside. And Sentinel, despite being hosted in Azure and a platform as a service product, it caters for all technologies, regardless of where they reside. So if we start from the left-hand side here, what represents your customer organization, it doesn't matter where that data resides. So, it can be in Azure, it can be an on-premise server or device. It doesn't matter if your resources are hosted in a third-party cloud or AWS, GCP, Oracle, etc., or if you run SaaS applications such as Cloudflare or Mimecast, etc., Message Labs, those kind of products. We can still bring all of that telemetry data into Sentinel. So really critical to remember that this doesn't just apply to Microsoft's Azure technologies. We can bring all of that telemetry in regardless of where that resides, including physical appliances as well. So we can easily bring in data from software-based firewalls or platform as a service-based firewalls, but also physical devices as well. So the architecture here would be to use a syslog server to ingest those log files, and then pass that data securely through to Sentinel using the Azure monitoring agent. You can see here that Sentinel is built on a log analytics workspace in Azure. I've included in the diagram Microsoft Defender for Cloud. This isn't a prerequisite of Sentinel, but I've included it in the diagram because you can actually share the same log analytics workspace with Defender for Cloud. So that saves on some cost and analysis there by sharing that workspace. You're not doubling up on events and alerts that are logged into that workspace. And then we simply enable Sentinel on that workspace. It can't exist without the underlying workspace. And then at that point, we start to add the data connectors to ingest and collect the data, which can then be used to detect and investigate the security threats. And of course, using that SOAR component, we can then respond automatically to those. So that's the architecture and what Sentinel looks like in terms of a product. I'm keen not to use the slides too heavily now, so we'll jump into what Sentinel looks like as a quick demo. I do appreciate that as an MDR offering, Transparency would manage and maintain Sentinel for you, but we're keen to prove to you guys that we've built our product on a best of breed SIEM, and it is foundational to everything we do. So I'll stop sharing this now and share my screen for the web browser so we can look at that. But before I do, has anyone got any questions on what I've shared so far? I don't see anything in the chat. Oh, Adam, is there something I've missed there?
Sorry, I was going to give just a quick time check. You've got about 12 minutes left. I know you're rushing as it is, but
yeah, that's fine. Okay, if you could just let me know if you can see this screen, okay, please.
Yeah, got it.
Okay, perfect. Cool. So obviously, as per any SIEM, you get a quick dashboard overview. So quick quick heads up view of what your estate looks like. As I mentioned, everything is built on the underlying analytics workspace, which is where we collect the data and enables us to perform our hunting activities. Everything is ingested into various tables into the database, and we can expand that schema with all of the content that we add into it. So the schema will get expanded depending on what content we ingest into Sentinel. But it's extremely powerful, and we can perform any number of activities across that data and present that however we like. So fantastic for reporting. And of course, our MDR service includes those verbose reports for the execs and the security teams alike. And we can cover that in a moment, what that looks like. In terms of surfacing alerts, you can see here in my demo tenant that I've had some activities happening here that Sentinel has surfaced. If we wanted to dig into one of those, so if we look at, for example, this one that has come through in conjunction with the Microsoft Defender XDR products, we can see that if we go into the investigation here, the product has started to build the timeline. So it's taking those individual alerts and stitch those together to create an incident. We can also see here that it's realized that this device that has got an indicator of compromise has also had prior high severity attacks run against it, and we could pivot around those if we like. If we wanted to visualize this data differently, instead of this sort of timeline investigate here, and we get this nice spider diagram that obviously we can drill into any of these entities to derive more information from it. So if we wanted to see where that file was used elsewhere in the organization, we could then use that to hunt across and start to expand that investigation beyond that single endpoint that was compromised here. And then moving back out from here, we can visualize this data. So if we want to take this and use it for reporting, for example, we can see this here. I'm ingesting the data from one of my firewalls into Sentinel, so we can look for changes. Maybe we see big spikes in traffic increases, which might indicate data exfiltration, something like that. We can pivot around this to see trends in data usage here. So maybe we're seeing new ports being opened up on the firewall, or traffic being used over those ports, or even just new devices being introduced into the network. So a great way to visualize this data, and of course all of this can be customized how we wish to use that. I mentioned the hunting earlier, loads of queries built in here, so we can actively go looking for threats. Of course we can write our own here, and everything that Microsoft do is mapped to the MITRE ATT&CK framework. We can skip ahead and actually look at that here. So we can see the coverage in my tenant here is fairly sparse. So if I was looking at this and saw that I didn't have particularly great coverage or detection for defense evasion, I could start to look at building out analytic rules for discovery here to start to close the gap. You can see here that I have got a significant amount of alerts in here for detecting exploit of public facing applications, and I can pivot around those as well. So great visualization of what my coverage looks like there. I mentioned the entity behavior. We can look at here and start to pivot around to see what I may wish to delve a little bit deeper into, or to become the start of a hunt. So you can see that my test machine here, PC1, is the cause of a lot of my problems. So I may wish to pivot around here and just delve a little bit into this device to see what problems I've got there to address. And then beyond that, we can go into depth if you guys wish to see more around Sentinel. We've also hosted other webinars on this that have been recorded if you want to see a more deep dive into the product itself. But ultimately, the entire product is based on the content that it can ingest. So we do that through solutions here, which are basically a set of data connectors telling it how to parse and normalize that data, so that we can then analyze that through analytic rules and the hunting, etc., that I mentioned earlier. We of course can stitch together the SOAR components here to orchestrate any automations we want on that. and there are a lot of playbooks built in here. So if we want to, for example, disable accounts, or in this case here, we may wish to trigger a password reset for a user, we can attach that to an alert so that we can trigger that off the back of that piece. Appreciate that was a super quick overview of Sentinel, but again, just really keen to prove that we are building out our MDR service on a best of breed SIEM. It's really important. You know, I've worked for organizations before where their security offerings have been based on tooling that is less than best of breed, and of course the service is only as good as the tooling. So really keen to make sure that we prove the value of that tooling. So moving on to the actual service offering that we have for our MDR, of course, based on Sentinel, as you guys have probably seen there, managing and maintaining a SIEM is a full-time job for anybody and an entire team of people. We have a dedicated security team and a SOC, or a security operations center, that operates 24/7. That is hosted from the UK, and the team in New Zealand are Transparency employees. They're not outsourced or subcontracted or anything like that. I personally interviewed all of the guys and girls there. They use the same kit that we do. They're subject to the same access controls, audits, everything. Is just that they work in New Zealand and live in New Zealand. So the experience you'll get will be exactly the same day or night with us. They perform a great deal of our threat hunting, etc., and the activities that don't tend to require as much customer interaction, including the threat intelligence, etc. A key part of that SOC activity is managing and maintaining the platform and ensuring that the best practices are constantly applied to Sentinel. And you can see there on the right that we manage and maintain what we refer to as a secure by design blueprint. And part of the product offering or the solution offering here is to ensure that we are maintaining Sentinel along those best practices. It's really easy as a managed security provider to implement a piece of tooling such as Sentinel and then just wait for things to happen. But it is really important to make sure you keep up with the ever-evolving security landscape and ensure the tooling is keeping up with that. And we stand by that. We actually review those blueprints on a weekly basis with our entire engineering team to ensure that that is constantly up to date. The SOC team, of course, is a team of security experts. Those are working around the clock to think of ourselves as an extension of your organization, and help you guys with that guided remediation with the threats that we find. We'll be in course ingesting those alerts day and night, and really working hard to squash any false or benign positives. The sort of cost effectiveness of our service, we feel, is very good. We have a modular offering here, which I'll be running through in the next slides now. So the service offering is built on a core service that I'll expand on in a moment. This is really aimed at customers that have, as a bare minimum, an Azure or M365 presence. But that core offering also brings to the table all of the core elements of our service offering. Beyond that, we then have stackable modules, depending on what the organization looks like, that we can bring additional telemetry data into scope. So from the left to right, we can bring in all of the Microsoft XDR products, so all of the Defender 4 products, predominantly, including Intune. We can bring in hybrid infrastructure. So as I mentioned earlier, regardless of where that resides, we can bring in servers, etc., DNS data. We can bring in any bespoke telemetry you guys have, so third-party security tooling. It doesn't have to be from Microsoft. So if you've got Cortex, FireEye, CrowdStrike, Darktrace, etc., we can bring all of that into Sentinel and manage the collection of that data and telemetry. and of course firewalls, but also other appliances as well, so proxies, wireless, anything that has security value that we can ingest into Sentinel. And then over the top of all of that, we can layer our attack disruption offering to help supplement your existing security teams and IT teams. So in the core offering, we of course have 24/7 security monitoring and alert response. We have baked into the product proactive threat hunting. The core product itself covers Azure and M365 as a bare minimum, and then of course we can bring on top of that those additional modules that we've spoken about. We have that expert guided remediation from our SOC. The reporting and security dashboards will be provided to you guys with an exec overview. We've got security statistics with things like mean time to resolve and remediate. All of the things that the exec board would be looking for. We've also got a deep dive of all of the security incidents that we deal with for you. We've got the risk register entries, all of the kind of good stuff that you'd expect to be in a report. And all of those things are presented by a dedicated service delivery manager. So you've got a central point of contact here at Transparity to talk about all of the security elements that we're providing for you guys. Everything that we do is aligned to the MITRE ATT&CK and Zero Trust frameworks. And we have a pre-agreed rules of engagement with your team. So we sit down with you to agree in what circumstances should we take whatever actions for those entities, depending on what that attack looks like. So if you were to say to us, you know, if an attack was based on this file server, we would expect you to do X, Y, Z, then that is what we would do. That's the agreed rules of engagement. And that's really important when we step into our next piece, which is the attack disruption. This piece is an add-on that is set to bridge the gap between our MDR offering, where we provide guided remediation and work with your teams, versus our fully managed security service, where we take complete ownership of your security estate and would remediate end to end for you. This attack disruption add-on is set to bridge the gap there, and is really aimed at teams whereby they may not have people on call of an evening or a night when an attack happens, and can't work with us to provide that guided remediation and response. This would essentially provide that disruption of the attack. So if we were to look at an example here across the bottom, in the case of a compromised attack, with guided remediation, of course, we would work with you to provide the guidance of how we should secure that that account, what we should be looking at. Have they stood up additional accounts? Have they moved laterally through the network? Is there any indicators of compromise? Do we need to revoke session tokens for MFA? All of that kind of good stuff. If we can't do that, then the attack disruption add-on is set to disrupt that attack until such time we can continue that remediation with your teams. So in this case, Sentinel would raise the alert. Our SOC, of course, would be alerted to that as well, so we could start our triage of that. But in parallel, the attack disruption add-on would programmatically and automatically disable that account through Active Directory or Entra or Linux, wherever that entity has been raised as a threat within the system, thus disrupting the attack. So it's very much performing the first pass of that actual remediation on your behalf, until such time we can then continue with your team. So that's what that attack disruption add-on looks like. And then moving on to the last slide from me, I was just really keen to show how the various modules stack up in terms of alignment to the MITRE ATT&CK framework and what coverage that provides, so that you can see holistically how those modules stack and the sort of coverage that you would be getting from each of those modules and what that looks like. Of course, all of this is subject to scope, so if you wanted to talk to us, you know, and discuss what security signals would provide value to your organization, we're really keen to discuss that. We're really sincere with the way that we build out Sentinel. We only want to ingest signals that actually provide security value. Otherwise, Sentinel could quite quickly become an expensive syslog server. And I've seen that before where customers will put too much information into it that doesn't provide any security value. Obviously, we're keen not to do that and actually make sure that it's as cost effective as possible whilst providing that best of breed security capabilities. Adam, I think it's back to you now.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sean. I suppose, yeah, kind of any questions, feel free to raise a hand, jump in, drop them into the chat. But kind of as we wait for that, just kind of to bring your attention to kind of this incentive we're offering, which is a 2-day cybersecurity assessment, which kind of really just sort of like helps look at your business, your people, process, products, and kind of identify where you could strengthen your cybersecurity posture. Kind of relying on sort of Microsoft funding in terms of doing that. But yeah, obviously, if you want to kind of take advantage of that, complete the pull request that Mary has shared just there, and yeah, be happy to assist. But yeah, kind of throw the floor open to any kind of questions that you'd like to raise, anything you'd like to dig into. You've got a lot of knowledge and experience in Sean, so yeah, good to take advantage of it if you can.
Great, thanks, Adam. Yeah, Adam and I will hang around for the remainder of the time. If anyone's got any questions, feel free to come off of mute or put them in the chat. But if not, thank you very much for attending today. Appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.